Topic that we want to discuss tonight, of course, are the top issues that are driving Texans to the polls. We've seen big numbers of people actually going out and voting. According to Texas politics research by University of Texas, the economy and increasing prices are top concerns, of course, that affects your everyday life. And then closely followed by immigration and border policy. Far behind that, democracy and abortion laws are a driving factor.
Yeah, and this is something that we've seen a lot of the candidates talk about over time. So let's talk about it. Dr. Denson, I want to ask you, we've seen the early voter turnout across Central Texas. What could you tell us about, voter participation this time around?
Well, it's much higher than we're used to. It's been trending upwards for a period of time, and projections are it could even hit 75% of eligible voters this time around, which is an extraordinarily high measure. When I was growing up, 50% was the norm in the Reagan era.
So, Dr. Flavin, what is that? What have you noticed about those numbers? I mean, what does that mean, really? And it's a question for both of you, but I'll begin with you. I mean, does it mean that we are more divisive as a country because you're so motivated to get out and vote for your candidate? What does it mean?
I think it's a little bit of both. So it's that politics is for sure a little more polarized, a little more divisive. That's maybe the more negative way of looking at it, but a more positive way is that folks are more interested and want to make their voice heard. And so to me, an increase in voter turnout is a great thing for democracy because it means more citizens are having their voices heard, and politicians, we know from political science research, really pay attention to the concerns of those who show up to the polls.
Yeah, and I mean, we've seen the voter turnout increase. I mean, from the 2020 election, we've seen a high voter turnout for that, and now this. But, being online, people are on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. They said, social media sometimes stresses them out. I want to ask, how does the election stress impact people's mental health? So I want to start with you, Dr. Dixon.
I'm not a mental health expert, but I've seen plenty of stress among my students and even among the faculty at the university. And I think what it is that the increasing polarization of the two parties since the 1970s seems to be raising the stakes with every election in terms of the gap in what policies will be pursued by the Democratic candidate, what policies will be pursued by the Republican candidate. And that perception, I think, has increased the stress level for people.
I would agree. It's increased our stress level here at the station too. And one question really that I have at this point is for all these campaigns, now that we can see some clear winners for some of these state races and that sort of thing, do their campaigns then, the Democratic machine, the Republican machine, kind of go back and go, oh, we really drove that particular issue and that did not resonate maybe as much as this issue? I mean, what happens now as these campaigns kind of regroup for the next election?
Yeah, I think that's the great thing about democracy is that if you lose, it's disappointing, but you regroup, you figure out what went wrong, what issues didn't resonate, and then maybe try to emphasize a different strategy next time, reach out to new voters. I think here in Texas, that's what Democrats certainly need to do if they want to make it a more competitive state. Reaching out to some of those folks who may be right between the parties and may consider voting Democrat next time around.
Of course, having a safe and fair election is just a part of the hallmarks of a democracy, and we pride ourselves on that. I have to say, just anecdotally, I have not heard a lot of people, saying this doesn't seem like a fair election, things aren't going well, or kind of calling the system as a whole under question. Do you think that Americans feel confident in our system, our voting system?
Fewer Americans seem to feel confident in our voting system than did, say, a decade ago. That doesn't mean that a majority, by any means, question the electoral system, but there are these fears of manipulation. And I think that the fears come from both sides of the aisle, but when elections are very, very close, and by all indications this should be a very, very close election, people are much more worried about things like that because even if they make a little bit of difference, a percent or two of the vote, it matters.
Mm-hmm.